Hello and welcome to Shape the System, where we find and tell the stories that help people to rethink the way the world works. We interview people from all over the world who are helping to change our systems for the better. Shape the System is an independent podcast with support from KPMG High Growth Ventures, who help ambitious founders and their teams scale up for success. More about KPMG High Growth Ventures after the interview. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. We're going to be talking about fashion today. We haven't had a lot of chats about fashion in the 3 and a bit years, so I'm pretty excited to be talking to Kristian Hansen from Slo. And I know that this is the only pronunciation of it. I think there's a few different ways to do it. So Kristian, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself a little bit, but also just give me the range of pronunciations and then we'll get straight into it.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristian. I'm the founder and CEO at Slo. So we do pronounce it just Slo. It's the easiest. My background, traditionally, by heritage, is Scandinavian. So my Scandinavian family have a good laugh because that's not how they pronounce it in Scandinavia. So depending upon where, you'll get the sla and the slu and the slow and we have a good laugh about it because it kind of means really nothing.
Right.
But we thought it was fun and it was a bit of a nod towards Scandinavia and their efforts towards sustainability and my background and so on and so forth.
Just as a side note on that, why do you think the Scandinavians either have this in them or have the reputation around sustainability?
It's systemic in their societies. It's the ways that their countries are built. And I think it is a little bit of the socialistic background of we're all better together than individually. But people just genuinely care about the environment and about recycling and about trying to make the world a little bit better for everyone else. And there's just a mentality of why would I not recycle? Because it's not good for things.
Right.
And it's hot wired into people. And so I think it's just been a long effort. They started before people. They've got a head start and they've managed to get ahead of things.
The state they were doing it before it was cool or in vogue or...
Totally.
Wonderful. All right. We're already gone down one rabbit hole. That's fantastic. We'll come back to the topic at hand. I said up front, we're going to be talking about fashion. And as the name implies, we're obviously leaning up against the opposite of slow, being fast. There is a lot of dialogue around fast fashion. So I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I do want to understand a little bit about the dynamic and enumerate that somewhat. Like, how does fashion look today in terms of how does most fashion get created and consumed? And let's try to put some numbers on that.
Oh, absolutely. Fashion, and a lot of people don't even realize how destructive it is, but fashion is responsible for about 10% of the world's carbon emissions. It's more than both maritime shipping and all of the air travel in the world combined.
Right.
And basically, we are producing fashion at a level that every single person who actually built data models about 30, 40 years back, when they said, look into the future, we're going to be making X amount of clothes, they were wrong by 10, 20, 30x.
Right.
We're producing, for example, I know jeans are, my background, but producing about 3.5 billion pairs of jeans per year.
How many?
3.5 billion
per
year.
Half a pair per person on the planet.
Exactly. And it is an industry that right now is being designed to just work faster and faster. And the ideology of the biggest fashion brands on earth right now is how do we standardize more? How do we produce faster? And how do we basically get people to wear things fewer times so that they come back and buy whatever's trending next, And there's been a really interesting, an unfortunate kind of rise with that model alongside social media and apps like TikTok and shows on Netflix and whatever is popular in pop culture. We can now pump out a clothing collection in a matter of weeks,
right,
whereas previously it would take us months. And so the clothing manufacturing model, unfortunately, is just only trending more towards the worse in regards to the environment. It's just getting faster and standardizing further, and it's really hurting the planet and people.
Yeah. And I just want to narrow down to a few different aspects of this because I think this is important. It's hard to work out what's the tail wagging the dog on this, right? Because you have, obviously, when we talk about fast fashion, we're talking about the reduced cycle times to say, I have an idea on Monday and this thing can be in stores by Friday. That's where the definition of fast fashion comes from. And as well as that, I bought it on Friday and I wore it on the weekend and I'm going to buy a new one next Friday. These two dynamics at play. But how did these things pair together? Have we got a situation where we've created the desire for a thing and now we're catching up with the supply chain, or the supply chains have made this possible and so now we're trying to work out how to backfill the demand? Like, how are these dynamics working together?
There are arguments on both sides. Some people think it was in terms of like chicken before the egg kind of argument here. Some people think that it was consumer demand that drove brands to figure out how to manufacture faster and faster. I'm in the camp that brands figured out that they could do this and figured out that they could exploit particular labor markets. Let's just take Levi's, for example. Levi's used to be made exclusively in the United States. And then they started working in Mexico. And then they started working in Cambodia and India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. And they realized that, if we split our manufacturing in all these different countries, it's cheaper, it's faster. And they created that demand by saying, look at all these new things we can make. Look, it's new. And so really, I think my belief is that it's the fault of the brands who are constantly trying to convince people that what they need is the next thing. And you see it with celebrity endorsements and influencer endorsements and the influencer marketing strategies of these fast fashion companies. The people that in the demographics that they look to try and bring in to buy their products, it's almost always very impressionable younger people, and ignore all of these negative things. You saw this on Netflix on Monday. You want it now.
Right.
And I think it's really just taking advantage of the speed of innovation in other industries. The fashion industry is just trying to capitalize on it.
And the kind of reason I bring it up is because I think and there's a parallel here to when Instagram came out in 2012, and suddenly there was an observation about how addictive these platforms were, and they were actually engineering addiction into it. But then a whole quorum of people, and this is ongoing, have said, but you can also leverage these exact same principles to create a lot of good in the world. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think a big part of what I've observed with yourself with Slo is that you've actually leveraged exactly the same constructs to then take a totally different approach with it. Can we talk about that for a second? Am I right in that observation, by the way?
I would say so. We've looked for the pain points in the existing system and basically tried to say to people, look, it doesn't actually have to be done this way. And if we get out of our Amazon Prime mindset, our fast fashion mindset, I can actually give you exactly what you want rather than me telling you this is what you want.
Right.
I can actually give you what you want, and I can make it for you, made to order. So there's no waste, exactly to your specifications. And so we've basically just tried to reverse engineer what the pain points are in the existing fashion system, what people want and how they shop, and then try to add that layer of people want things that are new and they want experiences. And people are now starting to ask questions about, hey, who made my pants? And why are they all made in Bangladesh? And why are they falling apart after 3 washes?
Right.
And so really it's been about how do we capitalize on that kind of shifting new paradigm of people and consumer understanding, but at the same time, just trying to give people what they want.
Yeah. And this part is quite interesting to me because I think one of the most interesting things about the approach you took to get to market, and I'm being presumptuous that everyone knows what that is, so I'm going to have you explain it in a second, but was instead of saying, hey, we've designed a new range, here it is, and here's all these amazing images that will stoke whatever reptilian brain to get you to go and buy this thing, or we put it on a TV show, whatever it was, you reversed the polarity of that and said, the last pair of jeans you bought, what was everything that was wrong with it? And how would you, tell me the 2 things you would love to do it differently so that we could make you the perfect pair of jeans for whatever is motivating you, in some respects more on the functional side than the kind of needs and desires side. Let's talk a little bit about this aspect of your model, which I think is fascinating.
Sure. It started by accident, the whole thing, the whole project. I walked into a thrift shop and I wanted a pair of jeans, and I buy denim secondhand typically because a lot of the better denim was made in the 90s and you can still find it and it's cheap. And so I went into a thrift shop and I bought a pair of jeans. I thought there was no chance that they wouldn't be men's jeans. I'm almost 6'4".
Yeah.
If I find jeans that are as long as my legs, they're always men's jeans. Turns out they were women's jeans, and I put them on and their pockets were like, I couldn't even get like my debit card to shit in the pocket. It was so small. And I had no following on social media. I had nothing. I was just so annoyed that I had this. I just needed to rant. And so I just made a TikTok video. I just said, is this what you deal with? Really? And that kicked the whole thing off. And really people responded. And within a matter of 24 hours, we had hundreds of thousands of views and tens of thousands of people showing up and saying, yeah, this is what we deal with. And I was already working in the fashion industry, and I made a couple of phone calls and I was like, hey, is this really how it is? Oh yeah, that's how it is. That's what the women want. My comment section would say otherwise. And then I just figured, okay, you know what? Let's do it. Let's make what people are asking for. So let's collect as much data as we possibly can. We put out a follow-up video and I just said, tell me your dream jeans. Describe your dream jeans. Tell me everything that's wrong with what you own, whether it be fit, whether it be the function, whether that's pockets or the fabric. And we just opened up a form on our website, or we opened up a comment sections on videos, and we collected over 700,000 data points.
Wow.
And we used that data to basically engineer our first product. And so by the time the product was ready, it took us about 4 or 5 months to go through the data and build our first product. By the time it was ready, people felt like they were involved in every step of the process. They saw us from choosing thread color through choosing fabric through, we brought them along for the whole ride. And so our go-to-market strategy was all about this or that. Do you like this color? Do you like that color? And by the time it launched, people felt so attached to the product that they had to have it. They were a part of building it. And that's really been our strategy. And that's going to continue to be our strategy moving forward.
Yeah. And there's probably a couple of things in this that I want to follow into. One of them is this trope, and I think it is correct in a lot of respects, but you have kind of death by committee, right? Where you say, what color do you want? You get 17 different responses and you're like, okay, great. That doesn't help. We can only buy one, or we can buy two maybe. So I'm interested as to how you managed to resolve or tackle that. But then the kind of related question is, my inference here is, if you learnt that there's actually a high degree of personalization required, what you actually, in some respects, worked out was that we actually have to start making this product to fit. You actually have to be custom making these to actually get someone a pair of jeans that they want to own for a long period of time in this example. Tell me about these two related points.
Sure. Yeah. So community wise, we try to basically always listen, and we don't guarantee that we're ever going to use a particular suggestion or anything along those lines. So our ears are always open. If you send me an email and you have ideas, I'm going to answer you and I'm going to say, hey, thanks for your idea. I'm putting that in the bank here. I really appreciate it. If you ever have anything else, let me know. And I answer every email that I get from the community. For us, it's just basically trying to communicate as much as we can about why we're making the decisions that we're making. Right. And we haven't had any problems when we say, hey, we're launching this thing with all of these features suggested by the following people, and this is why. And it's really, I do understand that the sentiment of community can be the most powerful thing in the world, but also the scariest thing in the world. And we've had our community at times where they're at our throats, and rightfully we've made some mistakes, and they're the first ones to call us out. But I think that's important too. We have that back and forth, and they feel comfortable enough to be able to call us out if we make a mistake, or we say something that we shouldn't have said, or we made a promise that we didn't fulfill. But with that, we get feedback and we get ideas that are on a level that we would never be able to source ourselves. And there's no marketing research firm in the world that could give us the information that we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that, actually, sorry, I'm blanking on the second question that you asked me.
Well, I think once you have 17 possible colors or 17 ways that the gusset can be done, or whatever the part of the thing is relating to a jean in this case, it necessitates an approach to market to actually be able to build people the product that they want, which is highly customized. And that feels like the next challenge that you then had to try to work out. I want to understand that a bit more.
Yeah, that is and continues to be absolutely the biggest challenge, because we are a slow fashion system existing in a fast fashion world. And the manufacturing companies, they aren't moving our direction. They're moving even more towards the fast fashion direction. They don't want our orders. I walk in and I say, hey, I need 5,000 units, and 4,000 of them are different. They don't want that kind of order. And that's legitimately was our first order. We had 4,000 unique variants out of 5,000 pieces that we ordered. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And there are issues with, for example, if you order one of one pair and it gets destroyed in the last step, let's just say the last step of the manufacturing process is ironing. Ironing, sometimes they'll burn them and now I have to start over. And that jean could have been on the production line for 5 weeks. And literally at the last second, right before it's packaged, it's got a big hole in it from an industrial iron. We got to start all over again. And so really our first two launches, we said to everybody, look, this is our soft launch. We don't even know if this is going to work. If you want to support us, this could take a really long time, and it did. But we tried to make it as clear and transparent as we possibly could. When we have a setback, we tell people and we say, hey, this happened. I'm really sorry. This happened. I'm really sorry. And for the most part, the community has been amazing. They stood by us even when we blew past our initial time estimates. But what we've basically been doing over the last year now is just collecting all of this data and trying to figure out, okay, why did this not work? And why did this not work? And we've taken this now, and I have a playbook that legitimately is hundreds of pages now of exactly what we need to do to be able to build this system. And our next step now is we're going to build our own manufacturing facility with those principles. And so we'll have that end-to-end control, and we'll be able to customize, and every piece that comes to the factory can be treated as a one-off. But truthfully, being completely frank, it didn't work the first time.
Second time, by the way. Second time's closer.
Yeah. The second time as well. The second time got better,
right,
but still not good enough. And we're the first ones to say it. Like, it's experimental and we're learning on the fly. But what we've managed to be able to do with communicating with people is keep those people informed and ready. And now that people are receiving them, they're happy. And the improvements that we've made from the first launch to the second, people are noticing them. And lots of people have both versions and they're like, yes, you listen.
Right.
I'm still into this.
Right. Hey, I want to come back to one thing you just touched on from a word perspective.
Sure.
You used the word principles. And the reason I was interested in this was because I think you're obviously in this position where you're taking a whole bunch of input and feedback and insight from customers, but you're also projecting a set of principles that you're saying, here's what we believe, here's what we stand for. I want to understand what those kind of main principles are, and then also how you manage that, because obviously sometimes what the community might ask for, you might say that's not aligned to our principles. And what does that dialogue look like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's constantly evolving. But at the end of the day, our core principles are basically sustainability at its core of every single step. There are lots of brands right now that will produce clothing and they'll say, oh, this is sustainable. But sure, the fabric that they're buying, and they're buying it from a sustainable mill, but they're having it put together by children in Bangladesh. What part of that is sustainable? It's not. It's a complete marketing. It's a marketing approach.
Right.
For us, sustainability to me means end-to-end sustainability, from literally the seed going in the ground for our cotton to the bag that they will ship in. Everything that is within our control to be made more sustainable, even if it costs us more money. And it does. My manufacturing cost on our jeans is probably 3 times what it could be if I did it using more conventional options. The reality is that sustainability at every step is we will not discuss that. That's not up for negotiation. And because of that, our community knows that. And as a whole, we've had to say no to lots of people about different things where they're like, hey, would you ever consider making X product? And we have to look at it and go, there are no sustainable fabrics on the market. All of those, they're made from polyester, they're made from plastic-based materials. We can't do that right now. And so really sustainability and ethics, secondly, ensuring that I want anyone to be able to come into our factory and visit and be like, wow, I'm really glad that my clothes are made here. Most brands, they don't want anyone in their factory. They don't want anyone to see where their things are made. Our factory is going to have an open door policy. If you ever happen to be in the neighborhood, come and check it out. And those two are really not up for negotiation, sustainability and ethics. Everything else to me is we can play with and we have fun with it. And as long as really the core of it, and especially in our community, is don't be an asshole. That's literally it. If you're in our community, yeah, pretty much. I don't care. And that's why we don't gender our clothes. I don't need to gender the clothes because we make them by measurements. So it doesn't really matter to me. If you give me your hip measurement, your waist measurement, the inseam length, the thigh measurement, it doesn't matter. There's nothing that differentiates men's and women's jeans really other than the hip measurement. And so I don't care. And if you're a guy who wants to buy a quote unquote a feminine cut, wants to wear some baggy bell bottoms, who am I to say no? Why do I have to gatekeep, that on one side of a website? Oh, this is for women and this is for men. No, I don't care. In the same way that if you're in my comment section, I don't care who you are. Just be a nice person, be a part of the community, engage with us, and we're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
And really, those 3 principles have allowed us to really build a really strong community that we have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, it's funny because I can't think of a mainstream / fast fashion brand who has really any semblance of community in any, they might have the ability to add a review onto a product that they bought, but that would probably be the end of it. There's no dialogue. There's no kind of transparency in the truest sense. It's a very market shift in this part of the fashion. I think there's definitely discrete brands in fashion generally who are taking some similar ethos, but the ability to tackle it at the scale that fast fashion operates is really a massive rewiring of the way fashion gets produced at that scale. I've got a bunch of different questions in different areas, so I'm trying to work out which one to go into, but I'm going to go into that one first, which is in my understanding, the way that the fast fashion model works is it's one of over manufacturing because you don't know what's going to sell. Can we talk about that for a minute? Because I think that's a critical part of what they're doing that is causing a bunch of the wastage, but then also you're tackling by doing it the bespoke. I think most people won't understand this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I worked for a fast fashion company as one of my first jobs in fashion. Really, they're the only jobs that are available when you first get into the industry. And they're hiring all the time. And I remember being absolutely shocked by learning about sell-through goals.
Right.
And I had to ask people, what does that even mean? And basically it was explained to me as, well, if we make 100,000 of them, we need to sell a certain percentage of them in order for it to be a profitable collection. And I was like, why would you not want to sell all of them? And they're like, oh, that's not realistic. And I'm sitting there trying to figure this out. You are purposefully making things that you know you're not going to sell a good amount. And especially in denim, those numbers are like 40%. They aim to they're getting rid of the majority of what they're producing. And I've seen them. I've seen entire rooms of boxes stacked 30, 40, 50 feet high of old collections of things that we're going to burn that. We're going to get rid of that. They won't even donate it because it's more expensive to move it than it is to just incinerate it. And so when we're creating a collection as a fast fashion company, it's let's make 100,000 of them. We'll put them out into all the different stores. We'll test them. We'll see how it goes. If we sell 40,000 of them, we'll push to outlets. We hope that we can sell a few more at outlets. Whatever we don't sell at that point,
it's combusted. Wow.
Yep.
Fascinating. I don't think anyone knows that. I think anyone unless you're in the industry, as you said, I think there's no real awareness that actually, because what fast fashion is doing is it says there's 10 variants that are coming out this month and we don't know which one of those is going to work because it's zeitgeist. It's not controllable. It's why things go viral. You just don't often know. But we need to make sure the one that does go viral, we can sell all 100,000 units. And the other 9, hopefully we make our money back in a manner of speaking. Just going to take a breath while we digest that. What's your contrast to that? How are you approaching the manufacturing? I know it's bespoke, but I'm just trying to understand, what's your positioning and message to someone to say, don't go and try to buy a thing every 2 months. Buy this one thing, have it for a long time and make sure it's the best version of the thing that for you personally. Is that essentially it?
Yeah, we make jeans right now, but I want to move towards head to toe fashion. But for me, it's always going to be what people would consider like capsule closets, where you can have 10 or 15 pieces of very high quality clothing that work with one another, that can be dressed up, that can be dressed down. You could wear that same really nice turtleneck with a pair of jeans and you're casual, or you could throw a jacket on top and now you could present at a conference. And so for me, really, it's about building core interchangeable collections of clothing that are from the highest quality materials possible, that are built to last. And when you show people the math, more often than not, they're blown away. If you say, look, I'll sell you 3 t-shirts, 3 pairs of jeans, 3 long sleeve shirts, a couple of jackets, and a couple of pairs of shoes. And out of that, you can make over 1,000 outfits. And I'll tell you how you can do that.
Right.
They're blown away. They're like, I don't have 1,000 outfits. You do. But you don't wear most of your closet right now because it's not designed to work like that. And so really that's our core, is right now we're trying to make the best long lasting old school, that's what a lot of people call us, old school denim, and make it be built to last. And I want people to buy from us because they want to buy from us, not because they need to buy from us. And that's the thing right now is with fast fashion, they've manufactured a need environment where I buy a pair of jeans from a fast fashion company and 3 months later I need a new one because they're destroyed. And so for us, we are never going to manufacture that need environment. I always want it to be that people want them because they love the ones that they already have.
And there's probably 2 contrasting points I want to go into. The first one was one I definitely want to touch on, which is the kind of the contrast of disposability and durability. And I think any day of the week, if you said to someone, here's a product and it will last 10 times as long, someone would say, great, I'd much prefer that in most cases. I think there's certainly a quorum of people who are like, I don't want things to last 10 times because I'll get bored of them. And as you said, I think that's a manufactured problem. The bit about durability and disposability that I'm interested in is the economics of it for you and the economics of it for the individual. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. The craziest thing is that on the manufacturing side, the economics are marginally higher. Like actually in terms of manufacturing unit economics, if I'm buying, again, I could show you my studio here. I have fast fashion denim swatches. Right. They sell for about $2.50 a yard. And per pair of jeans, we need about 1.5 yards traditionally. If you have a larger size, a little bit higher, or a special style, a little bit higher, but you need about 1.5 yards. So in that fast fashion jean, they're spending $3 on the denim.
Right.
You could spend $5 on that denim and have that jean be built to last 10 times longer.
Wow.
But they don't want to. And that's just against what they're trying to promote. And the the most expensive denim in the entire world. I could buy hand-dyed indigo from a small batch Japanese manufacturer, and I'm still maybe paying $12 a yard, maybe max $12, $14 max.
Right.
So the most expensive pair of jeans, if I just said, give me the best thread in the world, the best fabric in the world, the best buttons and rivets in the world, I'm sub $50, even with ethical manufacturing. That's in my factory in Italy.
Right.
And so take China or Bangladesh or one of these different countries, add the world's cheapest fabric, they're landing jeans sub $5.
Right.
And that's really their goal, is let's get them out as quickly as possible. For me, it's about striking the balance. Where is it that we can create the best long lasting sustainable pair of jeans that is also economically makes sense for us to offer them at the price that we do? Because our price is substantially lower than most sustainable fashion brands. That's by design as well, because I think you cannot call yourself sustainable if you're not accessible.
Yeah. You can't shift the dial. As a totally unrelated point to this, I've been working on a side project of a men's belt for about the last 3 years, frustrated in the same way because I couldn't find a belt that I wanted. And I observed, and I'm not going to call them out because I think they are trying to do the right thing, but a shoe brand that was leading as a sustainable shoe brand. And I bought a pair of these. In fact, a lot of people bought a pair of these, so you can probably work out who it is. And about 8 months later, they fell apart. And I'm like, guys, you can't, unless you're durable, you can't be sustainable. It just doesn't even make sense. No amount of buying from the right factory or even making them the right way. If these things don't last long enough, then you're part of the problem, in my opinion. You're a better part of the problem, but you're still part of the problem. And so just on the customer side as well, then it sounds like the economics stack up absolutely fine. It will be more than fast fashion, but it will last infinitely more than fast fashion. And as a result, you'll actually pay less for this product. That's a fairly straightforward part of what you're proposing to the customer, presumably.
Absolutely. The idea being there's science right now that they're doing huge studies on end of life cycle in terms of carbon emissions. And what does the end of the life cycle look like for a pair of jeans, especially stretch denim? And we use a lot of stretch denim. And right now, stretch denim is very hard to make sustainably because it uses microplastics.
Right.
There's really nothing you can do about it. And so if you're not manufacturing stretch denim well, and those just end up in a landfill, they take a very long time to break down. And for us, it's about saying to people, look, would you rather buy 3 or 4 pairs of these over the next 2 years, or would you rather buy ours? And we can basically guarantee you that for the next 2 years, you can wear these regularly and they will not give out on you unless you're a complete idiot with them. And we have been. That was our goal. I've tried to destroy so many pairs of jeans just to see they will last. And end of life cycle is something that's really important to me. It's something that we're working a lot on. But that's a big part of it is I sell them at $99. I could sell them at $250.
Right.
That's really where our competitors are at. But I don't want to sell them at $250. I want to keep them sub $100. And if I could make them lower, and eventually, if I have my own manufacturing facility and the economics improve on our end, I will make them cheaper, because our goal is not to make money. It's to replace fast fashion at scale. I would rather be breaking even on jeans at scale and replacing what fast fashion is doing, and physically and literally making the world a better place, than you're like, oh, I could extend my margin by $20 or $30. It just doesn't matter to me.
Unfortunately, or thankfully, that's kind of what it takes, is for someone to say, I don't care about your margin and I don't care about my margin. That's the only way to take these things forward. So just in terms of end of life, there's probably 2 parts to this that are interesting for me. One is what you're doing with the product whilst someone has it. And in my mental model, I actually always hope to get much more than 2 years out of a pair of jeans. In fact, I have a pair of jeans that I bought that are from a brand in Wales that makes designer but sustainable jeans. And they've lasted me for 6 years. And the reason I have is because I don't wear them because they're not comfortable. They're awesome and they look amazing, and they're made out of high quality denim in a very sustainable, ethical way, but they're just not comfortable. I don't wear them. But my point being is, I've definitely had pairs of cheap jeans that are not good and not durable, but they've lasted maybe a year or 2 years. My expectation was always, why wouldn't I be able to have these for a lot longer? So firstly, just want to understand realistically what the expectation is here for a piece of clothing to last and for it to be considered durable. And then when you talk about end of life, the part that I'm curious about with end of life, is it what happens after it, or how do you prolong the durability of it through repairs or whatever else? Just let's talk a little bit about these aspects.
Sure. Yeah, it's tricky because everyone's got a different perspective on longevity. right now, our denim mill that produces the fabric that we basically are working with, they're designing their more durable range for over 500 wears. That's their goal. And a wear being a full day of doing everything that you need to do. The idea being, okay, if someone wears a pair of jeans once a week, this is going to last them 10 years. If they're wearing them twice a week, they're going to get 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we've tried to take that, the most sustainable denim we can buy, also try and buy the most durable denim we could buy. And then it comes down to construction. And so actually putting that garment together is a big part of it. That's a big part of the reason we went with working in Italy, because they have a reputation for building things that are long lasting, of high quality, especially in fashion. So we're trying to make sure that they last as many years as possible. We don't like to put a number on it, but what we basically say is if there's a problem, reach out to us and we'll fix it.
Yeah.
And if that's replacing them because we have to, okay, send them back to us and we'll actually study them. We had a couple people relatively quickly, they had some problems. We had them sent back and we realized it was a mistake. It was just a manufacturing mistake. Okay, we learned from it. We sent them a new pair. We moved on. But really, my goal personally, semi off the record, I like to make sure that jeans, that they'll last more than 5 years. But at the same time, I don't want to put that on our website, guaranteed for 5 years, because there's just so many factors that go into
how badly you go to festivals.
Skateboarder. Yeah, exactly. If you're falling down a hill and or running through a field of thorns, I don't know how to guarantee that.
Yeah, I think the aspect of trying to understand how long realistically these things should last is a tough one. And the reason I bring that up is I think we've put a whole bunch of product categories into the disposable category. And we should, as a species, be challenging things that we think of as disposable and say this should be a durable product. And durable means anything that lasts multitudes of years. Something lasts for a year, it's not really durable. A couple of years, maybe that would be considered durable. If you think you have brake pads in a car, they're a disposable part of the car and you have to change them every sort of 3 to 5 years, depending on how much you drive. And I think that's probably the paradigm that we're in with a lot of fashion. I'm wearing a jumper today and I've had this jumper for 6 years and I have patched it and it has got holes in it. And I guess it is relatively durable, but I'm like, this is the only bit that's broken. The rest of it, perfect. I'm not giving up this jumper.
Yeah.
So clearly there's a way to get this thing to last a bit longer. When you talked a bit before about capsule, presumably this means your everyday basics, but stuff that can be used more broadly than that. There's obviously a fashion term I'm not familiar with. What's the sense of durability that people might expect in that kind of spectrum of their clothing?
Yeah, it depends on the article of clothing, really. For me, a good engineered capsule closet, one that we're working on, for me, it's 10x fast fashion. That's really what we're aiming for, is if you buy something from me, I want it to last 10 times what you would expect to buy from a fast fashion company. And to ensure that quality doesn't degrade.
Right.
There's really two types of longevities, in my opinion. One that gradually over time, things break down. I don't think that's as good for clothing. It can be. And in the sense of, for some consumers like yourself and in the jumper that you're wearing, okay, it's gradually giving out. And you're right. It's only one part and that's fine. A lot of people would just toss that.
Right.
For us, it's how do we manufacture things that are as good as possible for as long as possible? And if it comes a breaking point, can we fix it at that breaking point? And then how much more use can we get out of it? And so one of the big things we're working on for end of life cycle is actually taking back goods from people and giving them credits for future purchases. And so with our own factory, one part of it is actually going to be basically entirely for repurposing. So if your jeans are near the end of their life, send them back to me. I'll pay to send them back and I'll give you 50% for your next purchase. I'll take that same denim. Let's see what I can do. If they're torn in the leg, I can maybe turn them into shorts and I can maybe sell them to someone else. If they're still perfectly good and they just need a touch up, we've got people that can touch them up. We'll sell them secondhand. We'll have a secondhand marketplace. If you just own them and you want to sell them to someone else, we want to facilitate that transaction as well. So wherever you are in the world, if you want to sell them to somebody else, list them on the marketplace. And so we're trying to have three sides to the company, really, where we have ready to wear jeans in a small collection in small quantities at all times that they can ship out, the kind of bespoke side, the building side, and then that last, essentially a thrift shop where you can come in and if there's someone that has a size for you, you can buy it directly from them. And I think that covers all of the bases. And then that allows us to really truly understand what longevity needs. And we'll have that data and we'll know what we need to improve and where jeans are giving out and what needs to improve over time.
Yeah. And that's just totally unrelated, but I just saw a meme in the last couple of days relating to that. It's pretty old, done the rounds on the internet, but it was the fighter jets coming back from, I think, World War II, and the ones that had all the bullet holes in them. And they're like, oh, we better make sure we put more stuff there. And they're like, where aren't they being shot? Because the ones that are being shot down aren't coming back. And that's actually where you need to put the stuff. This idea that you actually have insights to where these products are breaking and at what point they're breaking and what type of people who are wearing them, and maybe some insight as to what they were doing when they were breaking. And then feeding that back into either the manufacturing or the expectation or the repairs process, or all three of those, is like just totally different approach to fashion as far as I can work out.
We're actually building an AI model right now to do all of the legwork.
Right.
The goal is to we have unbelievable amounts of raw data points on the product. And so what we're going to do moving forward with our own factory is that basically every product will have a unique serial number, and it's going to have a QR code stitched into it.
Right.
And so that QR code is like the hub for that product. If you need support, scan the QR code. I now have everything about your product. I know when it was made. I know who made it. I know when it was delivered. I know what it is, down to every single specification. If 5 years from now you scan that QR code and you initiate hey, my product is at the end of the life, I want to send it back. Everything is in that little control panel, and we'll be able to take that data. We'll be able to use that data within our AI model, and it will quantify and calculate how we can improve systems. And so really, I'm just trying to figure out how can we take something like fashion that really right now is so antiquated. Our factory does everything on pen and paper in Italy, and I haven't seen a single factory anywhere in the world. I've been to about 60 or 70 manufacturing facilities in 10 different countries, all pen and paper.
Right.
No one's using data systems. No one's doing these different types of things. So my core question is, how do we inject the best technology that we have possible into kind of this antiquated industry, get as much data as possible? And then how do we use that data? Because I truly believe that the best thing that we can do, as a world, as a society, is look at those numbers. And the more we ignore them, the more we get shorts, products that are not built to last. And I'm rambling, but
no, I get it. It's just such a market shift from the way my understanding of how any fashion works. It's in some respects a technology or data-driven approach to creating a product rather than necessarily a marketing-driven approach. But what's curious as a counterpoint to that is just how much this is a brand and a community that is all marketing and connecting with people in the way that a marketer might imagine that. And so you have to have both to do what you're doing. I want to come back to one thing though around manufacturing, because you touched on it earlier, which is that your ambition or even next step now is to go and actually set up your own facility to manufacture. Just give me some sense of that. Like, where is that up to? Like, how are you thinking about that and even getting through that? Because it sounds like an enormous step change.
Yeah, it is. It's an insane project. Most brands, 99% of brands, they don't do their own manufacturing. It's all subcontracted out to different people. No matter how large, whether you're a multi-billion-dollar brand, whether you're a Zara or whether you're Levi's, they don't have their own factories. They're always working with different people. And so some people think we're insane, but the end-to-end control and the ability to have that data and to make those adjustments and be able to look at a place and go, that's a bottleneck. I can fix that by changing something. That malleability and that modular effect is everything for when you're trying to build a model like ours that's quite disruptive. So I'm leaving in about a week to go to Turkey. And Turkey is where we have decided that we're going to try and build the V1 of this factory in Istanbul. And I've basically got a bunch of spaces to see. I'm going to rent one of those spaces. I've got factory managers lined up. I have an entire floor plan. We're working on building the order management systems, the data models, the AI systems that are going to run the factory. And over roughly the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to be there on the ground setting it up. And we plan by October to be running our first trial batches. So the first people in our community are our day ones, our diehards. We'll make them some jeans, see how they turn out. And our goal is by November or December to be fully operational. And this is really what we set out to do in the first place. This is customization on a layer and on a level that no one has ever even attempted. We'll have over 1.5 million potential combinations. Just about every jean that goes out of the factory will be a guaranteed one of one. It'll be the only one in the world. 250 sizes. It's crazy. It's ambitious, but I think it's going to work. I've crossed every T and I've dotted every I, and I've seen where it can go wrong. So we'll see.
I mean, the content potential of going on that journey has got to be amazing. Is this kind of how, this is right back when you originally put out that first video and you realized that this was a big part of how you would go to market. And this is, you're just tripling or quadrupling down on this kind of effect, right? It's essentially how your go-to-market marketing strategy works.
Absolutely. I'm going to build this factory like it's a home and garden channel TV network show. Like we're just going to be there and it's going to be, hey, hi, I'm Kristian. I bought a fast fashion factory and I'm making it a slow fashion factory. Let's do it. That's really the goal, is to make people feel as if they're a part of it. We're actually going to do our fundraising. Again, we've actually turned down some decently large investors to continue to try and be community funded. So we're going to launch a WeFunder again. We raised the first time around on WeFunder and it was fantastic. We're going to launch another WeFunder round and I'm going to paint people's names on bricks in the factory because I want people literally to help us build this thing brick by brick. And so every single step of this process, from installing sewing machines to our first hires to our first pairs rolling off the line, everyone's going to be able to watch that. And I think that's exactly it. It's, to me, how do we bring people along, but how do we show them progress and how do we show them action? And that's why I want to really, we're waiting for that relaunch really for the factory itself. But yes, go to market is very similar.
Yeah, it's a fascinating part of it. Probably one just last question from me, although I often say that and then have a second last question. So let's stay tuned. But it sounds to me like the factory is like the thing that's right in front of you now. That's the next big hill to be taken. In terms of what will make that successful for you or get you through the other side of that, what would be the ask? Like, what are the one or two things that you're like, if we could, this would help us hugely to be able to de-risk or execute on this next big step in our journey?
Two things really. One, it's just data from people, again, more of what they're looking for and what they want. And that's really what we've just been asking people, is just tell us what you want to see and tell us what's wrong with what you have. And I don't ever hold on to data like we don't build a Bible and then stick to it. It's constantly evolving. Whatever people need and whatever people want, it changes day to day. So the one ask is just from the community and from the world. If you've ever had an idea about denim, about jeans, if you're wearing some right now and you're like, oh, I wish they had X, I want to know what you wish they had. That's probably our core ask from the consumer. And then secondly, just if you ever wanted to invest in a fashion company, you can invest for as little as $100. That's really a big part of it. Is it's really important to me that I would rather have 10,000 investors at $100 than one person write me $1 million check. And not because, oh, well, that person's going to have more control or whatnot. No, I just think there's such a power in that community and such a power in people feeling like they're a part of something. And so really, that's really the big ask. If you're keen, if you like what I've had to say, come and join us on the ride. Yeah,
fascinating. And just coming at this from a personal level, and these are the two side stories that I didn't cover right up front. Firstly, one of my favorite pairs of going out pants, they're not jeans, is a pair of women's floral pants that I got at an op shop. And my only complaint with them is that the pockets aren't big enough. So that story of yours resonates very deeply with me because I literally own that pair of pants. And the second thing is I am not wearing jeans today, and I haven't really worn jeans in a few years because, truth be told, I've given up on denim. I just haven't been excited enough about a pair that strike the balance between durability and fit and not having to spend $400 on them and then not be sure anyway. And it's like this conversation's rekindled my romance with actually finding a decent pair of jeans that I can wear and own for a while. Thank you for helping me get back onto the potential denim factory with it. But it was awesome having you on the show and getting really under the cover with this. So thank you for making some time on a 6:30 in Quebec, was it?
Yeah, in Montreal.
Not
a problem.
I look forward.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have an awesome evening, and thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Shape the System. As usual, if you'd like to suggest a guest, someone that you know who's helped change a system for the better, please go to www.shapethesystem.org, click on the top right-hand corner, then click Suggest Guest. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you get the new episode. Shape the System is an independent podcast with support from KPMG High Growth Ventures. Connects founders to the services they need along their journey. Whether you are looking to refine your strategy, mature your finance function, prepare for a capital raise, expand abroad, or simply comply with regulatory requirements, they provide you with the support you need to drive your business forward.